Hey everyone, Mr. Johnston here. I'm going to give you a quick example / explanation of how to complete the biodiversity examples assignment for class this week. So in our Canvas page and the most recent module, you can see this biodiversity examples post. So we're going to be using this document, the one I'm opening right now, as a resource to successfully respond to and to understand the effects of biodiversity. So we're going to open this, and in class, you will be completing this assignment on paper if and only if you are absent, you may complete a digital copy of this. Obviously, for the sake of this video, I'm going to use the digital version so you can see what's going on a little more easily. Let's clean this up so you can see a little better. So a couple of things I want to immediately draw your attention to. This biodiversity and ecosystems, we're doing case studies. So in other words, what we are doing is we are looking at several different ecosystems. Reminder, an ecosystem is all the living and non-living, biotic and abiotic things in a specific area. We're going to be looking at several ecosystems and exploring the effect of biodiversity. Biodiversity meaning the number of different species in an area. How biodiversity can affect the health and success of an ecosystem. So together, we're going to take a look at the decline of polar bears in the tundra as an example. And then once we have walked through this example, you can look at different organisms in different ecosystems like the harpy eagle and sea otters to complete the entire assignment, okay? So decline of polar bears in the tundra is the first section, and it lines up directly with the first part of your resource, okay? This resource we're gonna call handout C. So in the resource, you have a reading section and you have 4 pie graphs, okay? All of the answers to these questions are located in your reading and your pie graphs or pie charts, okay? So I will tell you questions 1 and 2 are both coming directly from this short reading. You can find information about how organisms interact, meaning are there predator-prey relationships? Are there parasitic relationships? Are there other kinds of relationships? How the organisms are interacting is what we want to find from the reading and describe on question number 1. Question number 2, how do scientists describe the biodiversity in this area? That is information you can find in the reading and directly copy for your answer. A hint, you might look for the words biodiversity is high or low, or maybe some other descriptive word. We're looking for a description of biodiversity for question number 2. Now, for question number 3, we will be using the pie charts or the circle graphs down below. Before we read the question, I want to give you a little information on what we're looking at here. Notice we have time 1, 2, 3, and 4. So each of these circle graphs is a measurement over time. Now, we can use the key down in the corner to see what color represents what organism or what animal. And you may be looking, hopefully you're looking for numbers. Whenever we have a graph or a table or information that's showing data, we always want to find our numbers. You can see in this circle graph, we do not have any numbers. The only thing we can do is we can compare the slices of this pie chart to other slices. So what I mean by that is this. We can see that the green seagull population is larger than the dark purple kittiwake population. I do not know how many organisms are in the dark purple or how many organisms are in the dark green. All that we know is that there are more green seagulls than there are kittiwakes, which are represented in purple, okay? So using these circle graphs, we can explain the amount or the number of organisms compared to one another. There are more seagulls than kittiwakes. There are more, for example, blue polar bears than kittiwakes as well. We can also compare over time. So we can see in time 1, the blue polar bear slice was larger than it was in time 2. When we compare time 2 to time 3, we can see that polar bear slice is even smaller. So what that means is over time, the number of polar bears, the population of polar bears is getting smaller. So you can see over time 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have fewer and fewer and fewer polar bears. So when we take that to question number 3, in the pie charts, how does species number change over time? Meaning time 1, 2, 3, 4. How are those slices getting bigger or smaller? How do relative proportions change over time? When we say relative proportions, all that means is how is the size of those slices changing compared to other slices. So let me explain. Relative proportions just means how big is this slice compared to another slice? How big is this section relative to or compared to another? Okay. So an example of part of your answer for number 3 could be, how does the polar bear species change over time? Using the pie chart, we can see it gets smaller, smaller, even smaller, and smaller still. That tells us that the population of polar bears is decreasing. It's getting smaller over time. Finally, in section 4, there are 4 parts, A, B, C, and D. You are going to be using your responses from questions 1, 2, and 3. And in question 4, you're going to use not only the pie charts, but also the reading to answer each of these questions. Now, we will be going over this in class. I know this is a little more complicated than some of the things we've done recently. That's okay. A challenge is good. The last thing I will tell you is this. The questions that we just went over in the polar bear example are almost identical, almost the same as questions in every other section, okay? The process you will use to answer questions is the exact same. All that changes section to section is what ecosystem and what organism are you focusing on. Now, as always, if you are confused, if you need help, if you have questions, first, watch this video again. Second, double check your directions and check with a kind neighbor around you. Anyone in this room should be able to help you. And finally, number 3, if the first steps of watching the video and checking with a friend don't help you, raise your hand and I will come see you as soon as I possibly can. I'm excited to see what you come up with as we explore biodiversity.